First of all, welcome everyone to our panel on AI's impact on business and careers. I want to get a few things out of the way before we get into the main event here. A couple of preliminaries, but I'll be quick. And you should all see my PowerPoint, which we'll use throughout the night to basically to host the questions. But first things first, a couple of thank yous are in order. People that helped making this panel a reality. The first, of course, are the panelists. Thank you all for being here. We couldn't obviously have done this without you, and for also helping us shape the discussion topics. As the panelists know, it was a lot of back and forth, and we did some surveys, and we figured out what is it that we all want to discuss, and so that's going to be what you're going to hear tonight. And then also for putting up with me and my annoying emails along the way. Thanks to the audience for being here, whether you're joining us live or whether you're watching the recording at some point. I want to thank my dean, John Veach, for inspiring me to do this panel. It was his idea. He gets full credit for the idea. And then he let me run with it. And this is the culmination tonight. And so thank you, John. For helping us find panelists, I'd like to thank the president of NDNU, Beth Martin, Eric Agresti from Advancement, and Kelly Vaughn, the Dean of School of Education. For helping promote the panel, Nick Spagnoli, who's our Director of Marcom, Kurt Allen, who's the VP of Marcom and Enrollment, and again, Eric. And finally, he was here a second ago for coordinating all the technology and the Zoom that we're using tonight, Ryan Espinoza. So thank you all and thank you to anybody I might have neglected to mention, and I apologize for that. Okay, so before we get into the event tonight, just a very quick plug for our SBM speaker series. This is one of several kinds of events that we are holding throughout the year. We aim to have 4 to 6 virtual events every year. And so we actually just revamped the NDNU website. So we used to have a SBM speaker series webpage on the NDNU website. The new website, we are probably going to have that shortly, but the website is still in kind of a transition process. So ordinarily, I would direct you to that webpage on the NDNU website to check out all there is to know about the SBM speaker series. And you can sign up for events there. You can watch recordings of prior events. And of course, we want your ideas. We want you to speak. We want you to refer speakers to us and give us your ideas for events. And so in the meantime, and I'll drop this in the chat in a second, I'll just give you my email. If you have any ideas for any of the stuff that I listed here, shoot me an email until the time at which we have the page, and then you can do it all on the page. We have a form there for sending us your information. And then I just want to plug very, very quickly 2 upcoming events in spring and summer of 2026. The first is on vibe coding. We're going to have probably a series of webinars that get into this new phenomenon of vibe coding, and everybody's doing it now, right? Because anybody can program, anybody can create applications with vibe coding or low coding environments. And then we're going to have also a series of events having to do with entrepreneurship. So I will keep you all in suspense a little bit about the details because we're actually still working on the details, but those are the things you can look forward to in addition to other events in spring and summer of 2026. Okay, now, tonight we have before us a very, very diverse panel with diverse perspectives. You probably all know the old phrase or the old saying, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. Well, we don't have butchers and bakers and candlestick makers, but we do have a tech CEO, a lawyer, a digital strategist, a therapist, a hospitality consultant, a machine learning engineer, and 2 educators, one including myself and one of the panelists with us tonight. I don't know that all 7 will actually be here, but hopefully they will. And even if they aren't, they still had a hand in making this happen, the questions and the discussion points. So we're going to get a lot of diverse thinking, a lot of diverse perspectives tonight. Our goals for this panel is I thought about, what is it that we want to kind of bring out tonight in this discussion. I kind of reduced it down or condensed it down to 4 different pieces here, 25% each. 25% information, 25% inspiration, 25% insight, and 25% introspection, which we hope, of course, will be 100% worthwhile for everybody attending. Just quick note on that last one, 25% introspection. What I really wanted to say there was moral support, because we all know this is a hectic, crazy, frantic time, and we're all trying to deal with this thing called AI. And so I asked ChatGPT to come up with a word that would substitute for moral support, because we had to keep with the I, the I, and then the M. So I said, find me a word, and the word it gave me was introspection. And I was like, okay, that's not bad, but it's, maybe it could have done a little bit better, but I ran out of time. So that's kind of what we're going for tonight. The four eyes, 100% worthwhile, hopefully. And then finally, how is this going to look tonight? Ground rules and expectations, about an hour for a discussion of questions, give or take a few minutes. Obviously, there's no universally right or wrong answers to what I'm labeling here as ongoing questions. What I mean by that is a lot of the questions you're going to hear tonight, you've probably heard before. I'm sure everybody that's attending and the panelists have been to these kinds of sessions or webinars, and we've been asking these questions since the start or the onslaught of AI in early 2023, late 2022, maybe even before that. But what we're hoping for tonight is to take some of those issues which are not solved, and certainly not resolved or solved in any way, and see what kind of new ground we can break on those particular issues, given that now we're in the year, almost 2026. We'd like to hear from everyone, of course, and disagreements are welcome and even encouraged, I would say. We'll structure the discussion around 10 main questions, which consist of 10 main questions, which consist of 7 longer questions and 3 what I call lightning round questions that are like 10-second answers kinds of things. And that's going to revolve around 3 main themes here. First introductions, then kind of the current state of things, and then what do we think about the future? And then we'll finish off with a few minutes of Q&A from the audience. And at that point, we'll have you use the Q&A function on Zoom. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start, of course, with introductions and your initial thoughts, which we're going to have you summarize in one word or short phrase. So the goal here is to please briefly introduce yourself and then tell us about your current relationship with AI in a single word or a short phrase, if that's even possible. And no particular order. Whoever feels like going at any point can go.
Okay, since I'm at the top of this lineup, maybe I'll go first. Thank you, Jordan, for having me here. My name is Nandini Nayak. I am a digital transformation strategist with many, many years of experience, both in technology product companies and in consulting. And most recently, I have been a Presidential Innovation Fellow in the White House, specifically focused on AI. And that stint is over, and I'm now also NDNU's newest trustee on the board. So new relationships as well. So I've spent my career taking a human-centered approach to digital technology and always wanting to understand how technology betters lives, betters work, betters everything. So you'll see me take that stance in this discussion as well. For me, the one word or short phrase that describes my relationship with AI at the moment is it's becoming a habitual companion.
Habitual companion. Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction. Who would be next?
I can go next.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mingfen. I spent half a decade building prediction systems for self-driving cars at Zoox, where the goal was actually very simple, no collisions. And now I work at Meta, designing ads ranking models that respect user privacy, yet deliver strong results to business owners. One phrase to describe my relationship with AI would be friendly rivalry.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe you'll tell us more about that in a few minutes.
For sure.
Thank you. All right. Welcome.
So I'll jump in next. My name's Rob Garrison. I'm an attorney, been practicing for about 15 years. Most of my work has been in the public sector. So I was actually a deputy attorney general for the state of New Jersey. where I did pension litigation. I then became the general counsel for the police and firemen's retirement system. So we managed about $20 billion of assets. And I basically set the pension fund up as a spinoff from the other commingled systems in New Jersey. I then spent some time at the Department of Justice, where I was the administrator and deputy director for the PSOB program. Did some time in private practice, and now I'm the principal county attorney for Rockland County in New York. And my engagement with AI is actively engaged. We use it basically in everything that we do in terms of drafting and, between litigation as well as anything to do with resolutions or any type of internal documents.
Perfect. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you.
Yan or Smita?
I can go. Hi, everyone. My name is Yan Yan. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in California. I actually graduate from the clinical psychology department at NDNU. Before that, I worked in the tech industry for 10 plus years. So I used to be a staff software engineer at LinkedIn and working on machine learning related algorithms. So my experience could be interesting because like some of my friends will joke like, oh, AI gonna replace engineers, right? But they're not gonna replace therapists. So you're in the right place. But apparently AI sounds like it's gonna replace therapists too. But I really like this sentence I saw and said AI is not gonna replace therapists. It's only gonna replace therapists who don't use AI. I think that's pretty smart. So I would describe my relationship with AI is that I'm gonna ask AI to assist me to become a better therapist who is not gonna be replaced. Thank you.
Very good.
Hi everyone. I'm Smita Kolhatkar. First of all, thank you for having me here, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm an alumni of Notre Dame, NDNU, so it's, with great pleasure that I'm back here after many, many years, actually. I Education is my second career. I did work in high tech for a couple of decades, and then now I've been in education for a couple of decades. Um, I Besides the ed tech part that where I have my experience and classroom teaching and basically all ranks within a school, and I'm very active in the Computer Science Teachers Association, where I'm the president of the Silicon Valley chapter and on the National Standards Writing Committee for the K-12 standards for computer science for K-12. And, Nandini mentioned humanistic approach, and I think whatever I do is more with the students in mind. It's always about the students, for the students, what is good for them. And in terms of my relationship, I would say exciting and creative because I can't wait to see all the different things every day that the kids come up with. The students, I should say. But yeah, I mean, I deal with younger ones too. So thank you.
Okay. Right. And the comment that I wanted to make before when we're talking about the candlestick maker was this panel was designed purposely not just to be about business careers, okay? Because we have people from all sorts of different industries that are business and not business, and that's again by design. That was intentional because A, it's more interesting. B, there's opportunities for cross-fertilization of ideas, and C, we wanted to involve the whole entire school, not just the School of Business. So here we are. Okay, and I'm getting emails from one of our panelists. He'll be joining in a second. He's having a problem logging on, but we're trying to fix that. And so Ryan's doing that right now. So let's kind of get into the next part. That now that we have your initial thoughts and you've introduced yourself, we'll start with our first kind of main question here, which is, how would you describe AI's overall impact on your industry compared to even 2 years ago? So what's the current state of things in your industry these days?
shaken up.
Okay.
I would say that whether it's the tech industry or whether it's government, where I was most recently, whether it's education or healthcare, I think the status quo has been disturbed. So everyone is sort of looking up and saying, are we safe? Is my job safe? What is my place in the world? So I think to me, in some sense, as primarily a change management type of or transformation specialist, I think this is important to note because change is inevitable. And sometimes when you have change that affects everybody, then maybe it is an opportunity for fundamentals to shift as well.
Great introduction.
So it's really changed the way that attorneys basically do our work. So it used to be that you'd have kind of informal movements back and forth between attorneys in an office regarding document generation. Now you can basically use ChatGPT or Lexis to very quickly basically generate legal documents. And internally within my office, we've actually contracted with a consultant that's made something specific for us that can actually use our database of prior resolutions and actions that have been done by the government entity. So we work within the context of the county executive's office, and we do all the drafting for the legislature. And we have a program that literally can do the work that would normally take an hour for an assistant to basically draft up to be done in basically 5 minutes. So the productivity is through the charts in terms of what we're able to do with it.
Actually, we just had Phil. Great, great that we finally got you on here. Sorry for the last minute confusion. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody, we just finished introductions.
Philip Walker. I'm CEO of Network Solution Provider. I've been in the IT transformation space for the last 15 years. I'm a alumni from Notre Dame, and I am on the board of trustees. I've been working with companies over the last 15 years, helping them transform. We ourselves have been on the 5,000 list, probably 5 times in a row, and won other several awards for tech transformation. I would say that our role in AI today is transformation enablers or transformation partners for businesses. And helping companies, reach their full potential on using AI.
Perfect. So we'll take your phrase to be transformation enabling. And so we are actually headlong into the first question here, which is, how do you describe the overall impact on your industry compared to even 2 years ago? We heard from 2 panelists. Who else would like? Philip, you can go, or anybody else can tell us what they're thinking.
I guess I can go. So, I would say the biggest portion that we've had is, how we deal with data and information, and helping companies realize that the enablement pieces for AI need to be said, but also, really reshaping how companies do business, right? How we engage, how we deliver, how we support, and how we grow clients, and how much faster business will move. So for us, it's, we've seen, a huge shift in data, how it's used and how that information is, but also, the customer experience and what that looks like, for companies to deliver.
Yeah, so if I might, Jordan, just to shake it up here a little bit, I know that we are enabling businesses and customer experiences with technology, but one of the things I feel is truly important to note is it's not like every other technology change we have witnessed, where new tools come in and you begin to adopt them and you measure that through productivity or revenue generation and so on. I think this change is a little bit different in that it fundamentally affects sort of what people do inside an organization. And it also has effects on how detailed work happens and what parts of that work can be affected by AI. And I think we have not had this level of scrutiny on the type of work done by everyday people inside an organization. And I think that is going to be truly impactful in terms of change within almost every organization out there. Would you agree, Philip?
I would agree. And I think that to add into that um, the transformational nature or the what you would consider the next step forward, right? So if we look at the steps that we've made, they've been similar, but they've just been slower, right? When you go from word processing to, Office 365, and then you're taking gone from Office 365 to databasing and analytics and what that did to businesses. And now when you have the ability to create strategy and move things forward, it's pushing the needle, way out in front of us now. So it's definitely an exciting time and an opportunity for everybody to get in on this major piece.
I just key in on one of the words you used, Nandini, which I think summarizes a lot of what I've been seeing, and you put a nice label on it, which is scrutiny. We're literally every day we're going to work saying, what is the work? I don't know what the work is anymore. Or maybe we do know, or maybe we're confused. But the point is that we're taking a hard look at what exactly is it that we need to do while we're at work anymore. So thank you.
It's almost like you have to take two steps back to say, what are we really doing and where does this apply? And I think sometimes companies are starting with the tech and saying, let's put AI everywhere. And I believe that before you start putting AI in, you have to step back and see where the opportunities are. What work gets done, what's important for humans to retain, what's important or what can have significant impact with AI. And I think Robert mentioned the fact that there's certain classes of work that immediate impact is seen, but there may be other classes of work that we can examine in terms of innovation or new products or new services. So I think scrutiny is a good word, and I think slowing down to speed up would also be something I would encourage.
Going down to speed up, excellent. Other thoughts here?
Yeah, in the tech industry, I would say over the past 2 years, AI moved from being a very cool feature to being the operating system of the business. Now we talk about reimagining every layer of the tech stack for AI, from infrastructure to app to agents. And we are pretty much describing it as software 2.0, meaning the behavior of the product is learned from the data rather than hand-coded line by line. So AI is now evolved in every stage of value creation, and many workflows that used to be pure software are now human plus models plus agents. So the core differentiator is no longer who has a model. It is like who has the data, who has the feedback loops, who has the infrastructure to keep the model learning safely, fastly, at scale. So AI now shapes how we design products, how we design organizations, how we think about competitive advantage. So like from 2 years ago, the product happened to contain some AI features, but now the product is basically a user-friendly wrapper around an AI native architecture. It totally transforms about like how we view the work and what we're building.
Yeah. Would you say, Minfeng, that it's less deterministic and more generative overall, that it's not hard-coded in a sense like we used to have before, but it's actually constantly changing. So it makes it difficult also to sort of validate and test it because of that very nature, but also makes it supremely powerful.
Yes, that's why we also need to be very cautious to make sure that the AI is aligned with our objective. And it is our responsibility to make sure that our objective is right at the very beginning.
Right, which comes back to Nandini's point about the what before the tech. What is it that we want to do? And you can tech in that respect. Okay, other thoughts? I'll throw in one quick one. For education, which is where I operate, obviously. Oh, by the way, I never introduced myself. Jordan Holtman, MBA program director here at NDNU, and the guy who put together this panel. We've had to change the educational product drastically over the last two to 3 years. Things I was literally doing 2 to 3 years ago in classes, how I was structuring classes, how students were taking classes, have had to change. So much so that you wouldn't if you would put my courses side by side, you wouldn't recognize the two as being the same courses 3 years ago versus today. Some of it had to do with the cheating, right? You can cheat with AI, ChatGPT, etc. But really, the bigger focus for me, and I think a lot of educators, was just how do we what is it we want to accomplish, and how do we use the technology that's out there and that's constantly changing to get us to those goals and make the students still be able to learn, because that's what you get an education for. Because you could very easily use the technology to just submit things and not learn. And so I could go into all the details about how I structure courses with presentations now and reflections and get very academic on you. But the point is, courses just don't look the same, and it's going to continue evolving as AI kind of fills in the blanks for things that we thought it couldn't do. Now it's doing. A couple months later, it's doing even more things, and so we're going to have to keep changing our courses again and again. I was watching a presentation from somebody from Columbia who says in their MBA program now they change their courses 4 times a year, which is unheard of. If you ask any business school professor, years ago, how often do you change your course? Maybe once a year if we were lucky. Now they're changing. Their standard is 4 times a year. So we're operating at that scale, I think, too, as well.
With the help of AI?
With the help, of course, with the help of it. Of course. Couldn't do it without AI. Okay.
I'll just add something to the educational aspect, which is in the K-12 sector, the change is sort of like you said, you had to change your courses. Change has been almost thrust and pushed onto people much faster than education first started. Like, the schooling system first started like 150 years ago. And speaking of cheating, I was listening to a podcast today from Stanford's GS Graduate School of Education, where the research data showed that cheating, as we would define it, is not any different pre and post the AI phase, because it's like, well, students would find ways of doing things. They're finding ways of doing things. It's a matter of how are we changing what we do so that we're enabling the learning and changing our definition of cheating as well. And, how can we keep moving? Now, things are moving so rapidly. I haven't seen EdTech products being thrust upon us as fast as they have in the last 6 months. And again, going back to what a couple of you said, we have to take a step back. There's so much noise around us. We have to have those noise canceling headphones and say, okay, what is it that we really want? What do our students really need? And then, take it from there.
Yeah, I think one of the fundamental things I've been thinking about education, I heard Ginny Rometty, ex-IBM CEO, say that, education a lot was about, at least where I was raised, really about ingesting information and regurgitating it, right? I mean, in the sense we were knowledge databases, and the questions were asked of us and we would respond and say, this is what I know. But I think with this generation, it's not that, right? We don't need to be databases of information anymore. Those are in our devices. But it's really what we do with that information, right? So how do you evaluate a student for not information access as much as the creative outputs that come out of it? And I think it fundamentally changes the evaluative process of education. Would you agree with that? I mean, I think that's why I said
So yes, but no, you're right. And I think that when search became prevalent, that's when it actually changed. Because then it's like, just Google this. Then Google goes, like, you get Alexa and Siri and whatever else, Google Home, and you're like, okay, just ask. Why am I even typing anything? So that kind of like rewiring and getting information has been changing. It's just that I think that the pace right now is way faster. And unlike like a Google search, AI searches are not necessarily factual, and getting that sort of, you know, embedded within students' brains, like don't just take it at face value, is so important.
Okay, that's actually a really good segue into the next question. I want to keep us moving along. This is a great discussion. We're off to a great start. I want to get a bit more personal now. We've talked about industry changes. How about your own work? How have you changed your work patterns in the last, say, couple months, really? I don't even want to say last year.
Yeah, for me, like the biggest shift is that AI rewired my reflexes so quickly. A year ago, my default would be let's Google it. Now my default is let's ChatGPT it. And that tiny shift says a lot. Um, Traditional search gives you information, and AI gives you interpretation. Basically, a shortcut from insight instead of a list of links that you had to click and you had to gather in the information and draw the conclusion yourself. And the second shift happened last week when I saw my coworker open Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow, for anyone not familiar with it, is a website where developers post questions about bugs, errors, or confusing code, and other developers would answer them. For more than a decade, it was a go-to place for engineers for troubleshooting. And that day, I actually had a moment of, wait, people still do that? And not because Overflow is irrelevant, but because AI has really made the distance between the question and working code dramatically shorter. So all these little moments really add up. They force you to move from being the person who knows things to being the person who knows how to ask the right questions. And AI has made me focus more on context, judgment, and system design, the part the model really cannot invent for me. And I can spend less time memorizing things, and it really shifted my mindset over the past a year, and the shift was so quickly and so silent. So if I had to summarize the past year in one sentence, AI didn't just change my tools, it changed my habits. It changed my expectation for my pace, and even the definition of what doing the work actually means. So it's a quite large shift over the past 1 year.
Perfect.
I want to share some insights and observations from my industry. Actually, from listening to all the others talking, I'm learning a lot too. I'm like, oh, wow, sounds like AI did make a big impact. And that made me think, well, maybe in my field, a therapist, or especially talking therapy, when we do human to human talk and in the room for an hour at a time without any technology, I'm like, oh, this is quite unique. Um, so if I would describe some changes I observed, maybe from different parties, like for instance, as providers, I myself, including my colleagues, I think there are different voices. Some therapists or other type of psychologists, they choose to stay away from technology, not just AI, right? Maybe even other format of technology, because they believe that they're doing the job, which is filling the gap, right? Like as a something that outside of technology world. However, another group will be like embrace it. I noticed there can be like difference between maybe ages or maybe difference between like how familiar you are with the technology. I feel like if you are more familiar with it, you use it more, you may like it more. However, there are definitely concerns about privacy because the uniqueness of this industry, right? We're gonna have to protect clients' privacy, confidentiality, which has definitely been a big concern by using AI tools. Although there has been large organizations adapt AI tools to monitoring the session and auto-generating notes, which I think a large part of it is still kind of like gray area. We definitely need more regulation around that area. However, it does, as a tool, improved productivities. This is, I think, from the provider's perspective. However, from clients' perspective, they are embracing for sure. I keep hearing from my clients telling me how they use ChatGPT or other type of AI tools as a alternative of therapy or as an add-on of their treatment that they find is very helpful. As a provider myself, I think that's a great thing, and I definitely support them. But also, I think it's important to educate them and then help them to be able to understand the risk and potential downsides of it. So I guess all in all, I feel pretty positive about the change, but I do think that along the way we need more regulation and more understanding of how it help the work, especially I think for me as a therapist doing my work every day, talking to my clients, I think I personally keep thinking about this question, like what makes me different from ChatGPT? Why wouldn't they just talk to ChatGPT? Why would they choose to talk to me? I think that's a great thing actually to push me to provide more human, more things that human has and the AI cannot do just yet.
Yeah,
Right. The so-called last mile. That's what I like to refer to it as. Is yeah, that last human touch, even after the AI. We still need human judgment. So I think that theme is going to recur a lot tonight. Sorry, and then you were going to say somebody was going to say.
Yeah, so I also have background in clinical psychology and I'm a cognitive scientist. So I think one of the things I've been thinking about is as we all age, there'll be fewer practitioners and more people who need care. So you will need some type of a companion, digital companion to begin to assess our mental and physical states, right? So that's coming anyway. But one of the biggest, I think, impact it has had on my thinking and my ways of working is framing. So I call it framing, right? And I think Mintang sort of talked about this, right? So when you are approaching maybe a client, or maybe I'm doing a strategy pitch, or I'm going on vacation even, it's a great tool to frame the things that you need to consider while you're taking on that problem, right? So when you ask a large language model, what are the considerations if I am taking a vacation to South America and I'm interested in XYZ and my family is interested in something else, what would you do? I think those types of multiple variants can be combined into a framework that allows you to make your decisions in a much more thoughtful and in a holistic way. And this is the way I have used AI. And I think increasingly it's how the initial framework comes up and you refine the framework by asking more questions. I think that could be useful in any field.
That's I think the understanding of agents is correct. That's essentially what agents are trying to do, among other things. That's kind of a major result that's come out of me.
For us, being in business and seeing how things have gone and how the information has changed, my role has really changed or shifted from what I considered executive management to executive orchestration. And we don't spend a lot of time validating technical decisions and business plans anymore, as much as we spend time designing frameworks in which teams and AI systems collaborate. And using that model, we are able to go deeper into things. AI doesn't, eliminate risk, but it helps it surface faster for us, right? So because we can see the risk, because we can see the potential potholes a little bit better, we're able to create frameworks and go around them, which has changed how we do business and the whole decision-making framework. And it's really added more, made me more thoughtful about what uniquely requires human judgment, right? When you have the best information, the best data, and the best models, then the human portion becomes really hyper-focused on how to deliver a lot better because you're well informed and you have the information. As we have more intelligent systems, is what we call them, and we provide more intelligent systems, we're seeing that is providing, the layers of information to kind of move forward. But, we spend less time on tactical now, and really on, what's next and why more often.
And echoing basically off of what Philip just said, from a government perspective, there's three things that I was actually thinking about talking about. One is brief writing. So back when I first started in this business, I had to physically write everything out, like standards of review, legal analysis regarding facts. Now I can basically streamline all of that using AI. But you have to get into HIPAA concerns, privacy concerns, whatever you're basically putting out there. Is it something that's going to be segregated into its own cloud? If you're going to use proprietary software to be doing that, you have to observe basically everything dealing with privacy of clients' data. And then from a government perspective, if you're actually using it to make decisions, like if it's awarding a bid or making a determination regarding benefits, the due process considerations that go along with it, and whether you comport with fundamental fairness in terms of using technology, whereas something used to be done by an individual person, and always making sure that there's human oversight in terms of making those decisions. And there's a lot of case law that's developing regarding the responsibility of lawyers in terms of fact checking and making sure that there's not hallucinations within legal brief writing that are then being presented to the court as an officer of the court.
Yep.
Right. Yes. And so, yeah, you sparked a thought for me. The major change has been, I used to be, and I think we all used to be in the habit of checking our own work against our own mental framework. And now it's, okay, you put in the prompt, you get back the result, and you're basically grading the work from AI and saying, is this what I wanted? Is this what I needed? Is it good? Is it full of hallucinations or not? And what from this can I use or not use? And the other part of it is, do I even want to use AI in the first place? That's a constant struggle, because sometimes it doesn't make sense at all. So that's, to me, how the work has changed as well. Okay, any remaining thoughts here? I want to keep moving us along. If not, again, a lot of this is going to overlap as we keep going through the questions. This is now time for our first lightning round. This is a 10-second or so answer around the table here. One AI tool or capability you've personally or professionally found transformative, and briefly tell us why so. Actually, I'll start with that one. I'm going to be really boring and say ChatGPT because it's a jack of all trades. It does everything, and I don't have to worry. I'm sorry, no, Boodlebox, not ChatGPT. Boodlebox uses all the different AIs to do whatever it needs to do, and I don't have to pick one. So it's very transformative because I don't have to know much of anything to be able to use it and get good results.
I'll say on our end, on the cybersecurity side, it's given our traditional, our agents and analysts, a huge reduction in time, a 70% reduction in noise. It didn't really, replace our, analysts, but allowed them to go through, terabytes of data, and, where humans would not necessarily find patterns and recognitions and issues from a cybersecurity standpoint. So using the large language models and large language action models that we use on the cybersecurity side, it's actually made us quicker to respond to cybersecurity threats.
For me, it will be persistent AI context. So now you will have a assistant that actually remembers your style, your goals, your constraints, your preferences, the ideas you have rejected, and the ideas that you have already explored. So the benefit of persistent AI context is that AI stops acting like a search box and starts acting like a thinking partner. That can actually understands you and have a reference of all the historical problems that you're trying to solve and help you pinpoint some blind spots or come up with like new ideas that you have not explored. So for me, persistent AI context is really powerful because it's like your personalized assistant that understands you a lot.
Right. And the more you use, the more it understands you, right? Over time.
Yes.
Perfect.
I'm not sure I've landed on one LLM as my favorite just yet, because I keep reading all the Substacks that tell me one is improving and the other is not. So, not being sort of in the deep side, I have several friends in the on the AI side, and sometimes I'll ask ChatGPT to write me a poem, and then I'll ask Anthropic to write me a poem just to see what they come up with on a specific topic, so it's interesting to try to understand how each operates. But I think eventually that's going to happen is people are going to gravitate to the tool that actually makes the best sense for their types of work.
Of course.
So, Nandini took the words out of my mouth in terms of no favorite tool, because I was going to say it's not a favorite tool I'm going to talk about, but in terms of, and not professionally, I'm going to talk about the personal aspect. I think the travel aspect has been huge. Like feeding in my query into like 3 different LLMs and getting detailed responses for things to do, including, I'd have to go to different places to find out like off the beaten path kind of things, which I like doing, not just the touristy ones. And now you get all of those detailed analysis for the days, and it's much easier to plan travel.
Sounds good. Anybody else with a lightning round comment here? Okay. I'll move us along. So the next kind of segment, sorry, we're still with current state, then we're going to move into future state in a few minutes. New technical skills or soft skills that are becoming essential in the AI-driven workplace. What do you think there?
Knowing how to ask questions.
What?
Knowing how to ask questions.
Yes.
Fundamental.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I would add to that domain expertise, because I think asking questions, but with knowledge, sufficient knowledge of the domain, is, it both helps you get a better answer, and I think also teaches the LLM the nuances associated with how information is presented. So I think that will be fundamental for anybody working with AI to know how to query the system to get the best answers.
Yeah, you really need to use AI tools as like extensions to your own reasoning and knowledge rather than replacement of it. So basically you want to guide the AI to handle all the repetitive parts and keep the judgment and innovative ideas for yourself. So in a nutshell, you need enough technical depth to know what AI to turn to and how to tell the AI what to do. And you also need to have enough human depth to decide whether it should be done and what should be done and how we should be going about it.
I'll say on the technical side, it's helping people to become, more architects and understanding what's under the hood to get better outputs, better understanding of the data interpretation that they're given, and then understanding, when the human is still needed in that space. And then the main thing is just managing teams through uncertainty. As they adopt new models and new models come out, helping them, adapt and having that, adaptability as change comes, because new tools, new language models are going to come, but helping them manage that so they're continually to adopt so they can grow in the business and not get left behind.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you guys talk. One of the things that I've noticed in my practice when I deal with private clients is that there is this emphasis of trying to use ChatGPT to figure out like legal solutions to things. But there's also my training and expertise of having done this for 15 years, where it becomes hard to express to a person exactly, you can't just look up an answer and basically get a legal conclusion just by just looking at ChatGPT, but then walking that balance of explaining things to people. Where I have one particular client where he's like, well, did you do this? Did you do this? And it's a very generalized response because he doesn't have the subject matter expertise to be able to know exactly what he has to ask dealing with New York procedure on a particular issue in a court.
All right, so the kind of the sixth sense that the technology doesn't give you.
Well, it's also the personal interactions that you had with just like the experience of dealing with people at a court, like dealing with court clerks and dealing with court personnel, that you can't get from just interacting with a computer or asking a question to a computer.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's context, right? Sometimes it gives an answer, but there are nuances in context. And human beings are very, very sharp at, looking at how the context changes how you would interpret a specific answer. And that, I think, cannot be replicated easily in systems.
Right, yeah. Now I was going to throw in on that same idea. Just you can use anything that an AI gives you, and then the last mile always is the human being does something with it or is affected by it, and so being able to predict that reaction, that outcome based on what you've been given and whether it's going to work the way you want it to do, I think is going to be already is and will continue to be hyper important. The other thing I want to throw in, and I don't know if it's a technical skill or a soft skill or a combination thereof, but knowing what tool works the best for the purpose at hand, which is something that we've been talking about so far tonight, I think that's a very hard thing to do because there's a proliferation and increasing proliferation of tools. The tools are changing every day. New tools come out, all the old ones drop off, and it's hard to know, what the current state of the art is when it's changing so fast and when there are so many options to consider. And yes, you can ask ChatGPT for an analysis. I've done it a million times, and to me, it's kind of a black box. I don't really know what to do with it all the time because I don't really know what it's like until I actually use the application and I've been through several scenarios with it. And then I have to remember that set of facts versus what I did with another one and weigh those two things or three things or four things. And so I think the key skill that employers are looking for nowadays, and that I'm still trying to develop myself, is just being able to sort it all out, have a good system for sorting it all out about what works best in which situation. So more on that later. Any other thoughts on this question?
I think
Sorry.
process documentation or understanding in detail the work processes that everybody does, sort of almost intuitively, and externalizing them will become an important skill in order to understand where exactly to apply AI and agents in the future.
Mhm.
Sorry, I interrupted someone.
No, that's okay. I think that in terms of soft skills, it is important no matter what industry you work in, that you understand at a high level at least how the AI LLMs work, what the literacy aspect around it is. Like we have so many courses now available for educators on AI literacy and ethics, but that's something that no matter what the industry will be, I think, important to learn at least the high level.
Ethics. Okay. Our next question gets to the kind of more mentalistic aspect of the actual use of AI. Not so much about AI itself, but how does it change the emotional or psychological experience of working, either within yourselves or for other people, as you might know what other people are going through.
I mean, I've seen a lot of attorneys be afraid that it's going to replace us. I don't think it's going to be replacing us if you know how to use it effectively. But I do think that there is almost like a divide between the people who know how to use it proficiently and the people that are scared to use it or are unwilling to use it, and in terms of what their productivity looks like.
Right.
From would you consider it, the fear and the anticipation that, automating tedious work is always going to be great. It's create space for creative thinking, enabling better work-life, balance. For others, it's going to trigger anxiety, right? Will it, replace my job? But AI kind of amplifies what's already there. It hasn't gotten to a point where it's evolved. So, as roles change, in frame augmentation, it's really just, managing the waves of the emotional piece of it, because it can make your lives better if you train and find comfort with it. But it really, it's avoiding that layoff things, or it will change the role. You've been doing something this way for 15 years, it's going to change in the next 2 years, but it doesn't make you obsolete.
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
Yeah. I think AI introduces a new form of self-comparison. So when you see an AI system generates ideas, code analysis, or strategy faster than you can type the question, you start asking yourself, what exactly is my edge now that machines can do half of what I used to be proud of? AI has raised the floor and also raised the pressure. We feel more empowered because all the repetitive work evaporates. But we also feel more exposed because the bar for good quality work and original ideas actually rises. So it's pretty similar that you are working with a super gifted intern who levels you up, but also makes you feel a little bit scared of your job security. And at the same time, AI is like a colleague who is always available, always patient, and never judgmental. So it lowers your emotional cost of trying something new because the tool itself will not think less of you for asking a very naive question or brainstorming a very strange idea. So AI takes away the boring parts and magnifies the meaningful parts. And it also keep you on the toe because you're constantly asking yourself, like, what make me unique? So I think it's a very different emotional change in terms of the relationship with AI. That's why I said friendly rivalry at the very beginning.
Right tie to that. Perfect.
I think that's right for the kinds of strategic cognitive work that's going on. But when there are job families which are doing more mechanistic, repetitive work, clearly there is fear of loss of jobs and so on. So I really think that leaders of enterprises and organizations have to really think about this change more carefully than previous ones, because this requires an examination of how work is done and how reskilling needs to occur. And so there is accountability to not just say, oh, we are so much more productive now, let's just fire everybody, right? I mean, there's not enough talent. So there is a change in the kind of talent required coming. And I think a lot of the fear and sort of negative psychological effects have to be managed as part of change management much more carefully, I would assume, in this new world.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, Nandi, what's the distinction? Why is this one so much more complex and difficult to manage than, say, when the internet came out?
Yeah, I think the internet created jobs as well as, changed how, say, in-store work happens and internet work began. So people were able to move from one way of, selling product to another. Here, it's almost like you're taking jobs out and giving it to a machine much more at much more scale. So the loss of mechanistic type of repetitive type of jobs clearly is going away in some industries. So I think there is a necessity for leaders to think about, well, what do I do with this skill, this set of people? Do I reskill them, and how do I reskill them? So you have to anticipate what you will need in a new world. And I think that's a bit of a challenge right now for people who are saying, oh, AI is going to make me efficient, so I'll cut the workforce. But at the same time, they need a different kind of skill set, which they're not quite understanding what that might look like.
I'll throw in education. Students are confused and anxious, which is kind of what, employees are too, in some respects, as we've said. They're confused about when do I use it, when shouldn't I use it. They get confused by policies themselves, which, the intent is to be clear, but it doesn't mean that the policies are clear, because when you put them into actual use, there are always nuances and granularities that you didn't think of. So, and this is showing up in a lot of surveys. We're surveying students. They're saying we don't really know how to do the work anymore in school. We don't know when to use AI, when to not use it, how to use it, how to cite it, how to do attribution. If I use AI, will you think less of me? Will you think less of my abilities, et cetera? So the same things that are happening in the workplace are happening in the school place, so to speak. Okay, other thoughts on this one? Otherwise, I will move us along to our lightning round number 2. One book, podcast, or any kind of resource you might recommend to us to understand the impact of AI on business, or really anything for that matter. I'll let you guys go.
I would recommend Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence. I think it's a good general reader on how to work with AI. He also has a Substack called One Useful Thing, where he actually helps people figure out, what's happening with large language models and where they're applied and so on. So if you're asking me for one recommendation, I have several others. I picked that one.
He also has a lot to say about education and AI. I think I'm getting an article from him at least one a week. Yes.
He's very prolific, yeah.
I would say Brian Christensen's The Alignment Problem, because it kind of cuts through the hype, and gets to, what actually matters, and, ensuring AI systems and decisions align with human values. Podcast-wise, I would say AI Unleashed for business applications.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would recommend Stuart Russell's Human Compatible. If you want to understand not just what AI can do for business, but what it should do. The big idea behind the book is that the hardest part of AI is not about improving the performance, but it's about alignment. AI will actually optimize whatever goal you give it. But if the goal is too narrow or too short term, you can end up with some outcomes that technically worked, but it missed the point. So it actually make you think differently about metrics, guardrails, responsibilities, and human value alignment. So you want to connect AI to strategy, ethics, and long-term value. And the book make you think a lot about how you can like coexist with AI and how you can align the AI with the human society's value and achieve your long-term goal.
And the title of that book again was?
Human compatible.
Thank
Yeah. I think one of the challenges, if I might, is this is the short-term thinking that we have with industry leaders and wanting immediate gratification from it versus setting up systems and frameworks for long-term success. That's a fundamental shift that I don't know if we're ready for.
you. Good point.
The book I would recommend in terms of education is AI and the Amplification of Human Creativity by Ken Kahn, where the emphasis is on creativity. So it's not, like he has written previous books related to that. And this particular one, The Learner's Apprentice, is it's just an easy read, but it's also focusing on the creative aspect.
I'll throw in one, an article that came out just a few days ago on the NDNU website, written by our very own Kurt Allen. He's our head of marketing and enrollment, wrote an excellent article on this very topic. So I hope you give it a read. It's right on the homepage of the NDNU website at the bottom. Any other resources? Okay, here we go. Back to the longer questions. Myths and misconceptions that you'd like to correct that are swirling around in your circles, your industries.
I would say that, that it's not going to replace entire job categories. That, some roles will disappear, but most jobs will transform. If you look at accounting, the spreadsheet didn't eliminate accountants. It elevated them from, data entry to data strategy. AI will kind of do the same. In the cybersecurity field, same thing. It won't eliminate, roles. Entry-level work will change. Um, you know, but it'll allow them to be able to deal with more forward-thinking, more challenging issues without having to do the mundane work. And then keeping in mind that AI is objective, that it's not objective, that it's unbiased, that training data and objectives, it has a bias to it. So, you always have to be able to still have that human rationale space there to kind of balance it out, because too much data erodes the wisdom, and too much wisdom, erodes the innovation. So it's really finding that balance of information in and managing the outputs.
That's a great quote, by the way. Or great phrasing. Too much wisdom. I love it.
I want to add on something in my industry. I think there are definitely many misconceptions what I observed so far. One is that many people ask me that why can't we just use AI therapist, right? Or even, right now we have so many tools and apps. Some are kind of like designed for the purpose of therapy. Some are not even designed for it, just accidentally become a therapist for many people, for example, like GPT. So there's definitely, I think, reasons. One is that although these days, right, like we removed a lot of stigma on mental health, and a lot of people have tried therapy, but still not everyone has tried, right? And it's kind of like a well-kept secret if you have never tried or experienced it. Maybe you see it on TV or a movie, or most professionals will find that's ridiculously unrealistic. then you may have your own imagination of how therapy is like. That's why when you maybe use an AI tool and you feel, oh, it's validate me and it's kind of have this mimic compassion like human, then you think that's what therapy does. Actually, I think that's not true. One biggest difference is therapists don't always agree with you like AI does. We don't always validate you like AI does, and there's a purpose, and there's a therapeutical uh, um, how do I put it? Like purpose of like sometimes we will challenge you, sometimes we will disagree, and then that's how you grow and that's how you change. So I just want to clarify that like it's good to use AI tools to receive companion validation to when you need, but you also need a real therapy to help you to get the proper treatment when you need.
I'd say, wouldn't that apply to many places like education, where like you still need a human with the students and not just an AI bot that their, students are learning from. And same goes for a doctor or a personal trainer. I was asking my personal trainer a couple of weeks ago, have you had people say, hey, I can do this with an AI? And he's like, no, not yet, because having that person stand there and tell you your form is wrong or this is going on. So I think, I don't know, in my opinion, that would apply to so many places. Again, back to the human aspect.
Any other myths or misconceptions we'd like to clear up tonight?
I think there are people who ask me sometimes if AGI is here, right? And I think we are far still
Right.
from AGI, and I think that it's important to understand that we have great capability with existing knowledge and it getting recombined into generative ideas, but that's nowhere close to the capabilities humans have. So I think somebody needs to keep on saying AGI is not, though there are technologists who say we are close to AGI and we're getting there. But I think in it entering our everyday lives, I think is a bit far away still.
The same argument has also been made about agents, which was the kind of the buzzword of 2025, but a lot of people would disagree that agents are already out there doing things. And so interesting.
Well, it depends on how you define an agent, right? I mean, agents could be small reasoning engines that do something very specific in an automated way and talk to others. So of course, they can be daisy chained together to create great intelligence, but I think we're still on the very starting points of that. And maybe in some very specific cases, they work really well.
Right. That was my resolution of the issue. It's really the extent of the agency that's an issue, or that's the debate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We're coming up on time, so I want to get to a few more questions so we can wrap up. This one I think this is my favorite question personally because it talks about success, which is kind of a little bit of an elusive concept because things change all the time with technology and AI specifically. But what separates organizations that have successful implementations of AI from those that are struggling with it? And what's the root cause? Are there many root causes? But the ones I listed here: technology, culture, leadership, or something else. And then what the heck is successful AI implementation in the first place? A lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, for sure. So, being in the tech industry, I always say it's 80% culture, it's 15% leadership, and then it's 5% technology. And I say that because technology is becoming really a commodity. You can buy the same tools as your competitors. What's going to separate the winners and losers are organizations where people want to experiment with AI, where failure is accepted and where teams trust leadership to, to kind of help them guide them through disruption. And that's going to lean more into culture. For leadership, it matters because executives must decide how they're transforming through AI. Are you just cutting costs? And then, are you, getting rid of people? And then how, to help continuous learning. And then defining success is really going to be, the measured business impact. So you're going to see a pivot from ROI to measurable business impact, which is revenue, cost, and efficiency, workforce, evolution, helping people develop new skills, reduce on toll, removing mundane and automated tasks, and then better decisions, data-driven insights through informed strategy. So organizations that are going to embrace that and hitting those four things are going to genuinely, be successful at implementing AI and then hitting that second gear or that second level of business productivity.
So, Philip, if I hear you correctly, the core metric didn't really change then with AI. It's still about kind of profitability and productivity.
It did, but it's measurable business impact versus ROI. And then the combination of revenue, cost, and efficiency, right? So, you're seeing more of a blended, more complex output versus just, top line revenue. How fast did it take us to get here? Or use the analogy of, back in math class, if a train left at X amount of time, which train's going to get there faster? The one that has the culture that adopted AI is the answer now, versus in the past.
Yeah, I think it's successful AI implementation depends, I think, on strategy and on having granular metrics. I think one of the things with especially the efficiency part, which is I think what Philip was saying, is you need to be able to have, in quote, time and motion studies to really say it was faster, better, cheaper, whatever it is instrumented in there. But a lot of organizational processes, especially in the information industry, have not been specified to that degree, right? So which task are you doing faster or slower? So I think our lawyer friend here was just talking about that. We were able to get something done in X number of minutes, but it took 8 hours. So I think the granularity of looking at specific tasks and saying they got more efficient, so the overall thing got more efficient, but also the outputs were also equally good or better. That level of sort of dashboarding and scrutiny will be where the counting happens. And I'm not sure that all organizations are set up for that level of granularity of metric and need to be set up to do so.
Yeah, in the past 1 year, I have seen so many projects that leverage AI for the sake of using AI, because there's like expectation from the leadership says, hey, AI is the thing, so we should leverage AI. But to do what? So I think the real difference of AI success is the strength of the learning loops. And the number one step that we need to have clarity on is like what exactly is the objective. So a successful AI organization know exactly what they are optimizing for and they stick to it. And that will be their common goal. And then they should have the discipline around data and its common phrase garbage in, garbage out. So winners should really treat data like a product that it needs to be clean, it needs to be meaningful, it needs to make sense. Some strugglers just treat data like a dumpster and hope the model will eventually figure it out. But reality is like whatever you feed into the model, that would be the output you can expect. And the third is like we should have the ability to build systems, not just some quick flashy demos. So we need to invest in monitoring, guardrails, metrics, reproducibility, and quick re-implementation so that we can constantly reiterate on the previous experiment so that we can continuously improve the performance. So if we had to define the real successful AI implementation, it's the ability to deploy AI systems that deliver the real business outcomes. And the system should be able to improve continuously, and it should operate very safely at a large scale and always stay aligned with the strategy and human values that we put guardrails about. So I have seen so many things that is like designed around the AI hype. But if you go down to ask the question, like, what's the purpose and meaning of this product or the project? The answer should be because it's cool, right?
That's right.
Exactly. Which is an easy trap to fall into. We do it all the time. Absolutely. Okay. Anything else on success? Otherwise, I will move us along. Here's our final lightning round. In a word, what's your organization's biggest barrier to AI adoption? If you had to just pick one thing, what would it be? Budget, talent, culture, data quality, understanding, regulations, etc.
I would say data quality. Like the biggest barrier is not like budget or talent, but it's convincing the data to tell the truth. Like there's so much amount of unstructured raw information out there, but we really struggle with how to generate a structured, clean information that we can feed into the system. So data quality for sure.
And I'm just curious, the AI wouldn't do that itself, wouldn't figure, the unsupervised learning wouldn't figure that out for you.
Unsupervised learning is not a magic wand that can just like wipe away all the challenges you face.
Okay. So that is a misconception you just cleared up for us. Thank you.
I would say talent. Specifically in the gap between having AI tools and having the people who understand how to use them strategically, and then having the expertise piece, right? So, having people who have high domain expertise and that are willing to use AI, not just as a prompting tool, i.e., answering emails, but working alongside the agents in a collaborative way. And I think that that's where it's really going to be. It's the talent and the adoption. I do believe that data quality will be manageable at some point, but it's an Achilles heel, but it's really going to be talent.
And I would echo what Philip just said. For me, in terms of dealing with some personalities, just simply don't want to change anything. You're also dealing with regulatory constraints, union contracts. There's a lot that goes on in terms of the public sector that people are not willing to necessarily jump completely into change. But basically, the system building, I think, is really going to be the thing that really separates an organization that really works well with its technologists to be able to develop systems that make for integrative use of AI throughout an organization.
My industry, or along with healthcare industry, regulation, clients' privacy, I think it's always going to be a really big barrier for us to leverage AI tools. But hopefully we can find a solution.
I would actually say strategy and understanding, really understand what you want to do. Sometimes budget, talent, culture, if there's strong leadership and clear strategy and it rolls down, the rest falls into place. But of course, all these others are required elements. But if you don't have the right approach to applying AI in the correct places and you've not done the analysis, then however much money you throw at it or whatever talent, you may pick the wrong talent in that case, it won't work. So I think it's a combination of understanding and a leadership that creates the culture, provides the budget, and reskills the talent to be able to do it. So I always say the starting point is leadership and strategy.
Okay. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. So what I want to do is just maybe hit on one of these future/advice, parting thoughts, questions. I'm gonna go to this one actually, because I want to get this. We have 3 questions from the audience. If you give one last piece of parting advice to everybody to future-proof your careers, I know that this is a tough question. It's a $1 million question of the evening, I would say. But one piece of advice, if you have one to give, what would it be?
I would say believe in yourself and trust your instinct.
All right.
For me, I'd say be a perpetual learner. Don't cabin yourself off and don't put yourself into something that is a proverbial straitjacket. Learn as much as you possibly can because you never know when that knowledge is going to be useful to you at some point in the future.
Yeah, my advice is don't try to future-proof your skills, future-proof your adaptability. Don't compete with AI, partner with it. Let AI handles all the chores. And you focus on the judgment, the relationship building, the strategy, the creativity, the taste. The parts that defines the meaning rather than the mechanics. And you should be the only one in the room who knows why something matters. And you need to convince other people to be on board. So design your career around that and you will never be obsolete.
Yeah.
I would say, not try to learn everything at one time. Go deep and, spend a month or two on one model so where you get, really good expertise and then experiment without any fear. Create sandboxes, try new things, implement new things. This is the time for the innovation and kind of breaking things.
You haven't qualified professionals. So if there were business professionals, I would agree with Minfeng to say, make sure that you are future-proofing your adaptability. But at the same time, I would say build deep context within a specific domain, right? So that way you can say, I know something deeply about this domain, whether it be a particular industry domain or a particular functional domain, know it well. And from that, then you can apply AI and know how it changes as time goes by.
Yeah, it's like don't go horizontal, go vertical. If you
Yeah,
go horizontal, you cannot compete against AI. It knows so many things. But
well said.
go
Well said.
vertical, understand all the nuances, understand all the know-hows. That's your competitive advantage.
Yes. And then if that domain gets fully, then you can move to another one and learn it deeply. So even in past, sort of advice I've given to people, I've always said you need to be deep in something, and then you can have adjacencies. But if you become too much of a generalist, it becomes very hard for people to know who you are.
I will say something. It will apply to future professionals in my field or in general. I think this is a really good time for you to experience your life as a human and really value your individual experience. You can hold space even for your friction and failure because that helps you to understand yourself better, which is truly valuable after AI.
Yes, and along the same lines, the advice I would give anyone would be don't forget how to be a human being. That's always going to serve you no matter what happens with AI.
Yeah.
Okay. We are done with the formal part of the questions. We have 2 questions from the audience. If you will indulge us for another minute or two. The first one is from our very own Claudia Roll, one of our faculty in the School of Business. Within your company organization, did you invest in creating your own GPT? I ask because some large companies have invested a lot of dollars in their custom GPT, yet there is concern that even the custom GPT does not truly assist or add value. In short, sometimes it seems that some AI investments should meet the company's goals versus kind of like what Minfen said, using AI for the sake to say you're using AI. What are your thoughts?
We actually have developed a proprietary, it's called Tessa. We have an MIT graduate that I was actually the programmer that developed it, and it's specifically geared for drafting resolutions, and it drafts them almost like a human would. Like I have to review them for basically content, but it basically spits out the work that would be done by a human. And like it's being spot checked after it's done, but we actually have proprietary software that we developed for it.
I think it depends upon, whether large language model can actually scale, be specific to your domain of expertise, in which case you may want to build a small language model on top of the large language model to be very specific and contain your data and your reasoning, your specific reasoning types. So it depends on what they were trying to do. So, I mean, you don't want to go build another one that all these giant companies are building, but if you want to do something really specific and nuanced, then you may have to build something on top of what exists.
Yeah, I think a custom GPT makes sense when it can actually deliver some real lift on a real business problem. So think
Yeah.
about the problem first and then think about whether we should invest in it. I don't know.
Yeah, so we build both. We have some companies that we built custom models for, but they had a specific outcome and need that required something from a regulatory standpoint to be built in-house. We've had some companies that have embraced some of the enterprise AI tools that are out there, and platforms that are out there, and then it was really just focusing on getting the data inputs correct, and breaking down their business silos, so the data can correlate. But it really becomes with the output and regulatory framework that business operates in on which direction it should go.
Okay. Any other thoughts there? The same individual had a comment. Said just a comment about what was said when a law client, this is for you, Rob, asked, did you do X, Y, and Z when the client does not know the law? Reminds me of when patients go to their doctor demanding a prescription because the patient saw the ads all over.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a challenge. I mean, you have people that want to supplant basically the acumen that you develop as a lawyer, and it can be a challenge because people sometimes want to basically say that, I'm doing the research myself, or, but you do that at your own risk.
Right. So the added burden now for you is an added extra layer of managing the client with AI
Yeah.
background. Yes.
Right.
Okay, well, that wraps up our time tonight. Thank you again, everybody. This was a great discussion. I really appreciated, the school appreciated having you here. And the recording of this will be available on our website probably as early as next week, give or take a few days. So thank you again for being here, and I hope you all stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Too. Oh,
Happy
yes, that
holidays.
was my last slide. Happy holidays to everybody. Okay, bye-bye.